Today, I want to share my top 10 home buying tips for anyone wanting to save money and avoid costly mistakes when buying a house. There have been numerous studies conducted concerning a cohort of remorseful homebuyers in recent years. And when reviewing the studies, homebuyers were most remorseful about the mistakes that they made during the home buying process. Unfortunately, most of the mistakes could have been completely avoided if the buyer had become more educated on the home buying process. And out of all of the extracurricular classes that you could possibly take in college, to fulfill your credits, I don't believe how to buy a house is an option, but it should be. In fact, most people looking to buy a home, they pick an agent that has no experience in selling houses. Most agents, 1 in 5, have been in business for less than a year. A lot of these agents have never even owned a home before. So, in fact, a lot of the agents that people hire may even know less than the home buyer, and that's sad. So there's that. Well, let's make sure you don't become one of these remorseful homebuyers by taking my advice. So top tip number 1 is to get Todd's simple home buying course. No, this is not an infomercial on buy Todd's course. However, it's a really good idea, and it's the best recommendation that I can give anyone that I can't personally help to buy a home. It's $300. In fact, everyone should take it, whether you've bought a home before or not, and I believe that could be some of the best training for real estate agents as well. So tip number 2 is interview and negotiate with a buyer's agent. If you decide that you want an agent, because a lot of people nowadays, they're just going straight to the listing agent because agents are now in all 50 states responsible to write a check to their agent should there be no cooperating compensation, which I'll explain in a minute. But anyway, you should be interviewing agents. Most people don't do this. They take their best friend from college or their mom's friend or their aunt, and they don't even talk about things. They don't ask questions. They don't make sure that the people are best suited for them to help them actually buy a house. And worse yet, most people don't negotiate their agents' commissions. So let's say that you come to me, for example, and you want to buy a house. And I tell you that, well, I charge homebuyers 3% to help them buy a house. On a $500,000 house at 3%, and I'm not saying that that's what I charge, but if I did, I would make $15,000. So if we negotiate and I drop my fee 1% from 3% to 2%, my commission becomes $10,000, not $15,000 on that $500,000 house. And that results in you saving $5,000. Now, real estate commissions are not set by law and are 100% negotiable, but unfortunately, people, they don't know that. Now, when it comes to the commission, your buyer's agent may tell you before you sign the contract that says how much they want to get paid that don't worry about it. I'm going to try and negotiate my commission and have the seller pay it, or have what's called cooperating compensation from the listing broker should I be able to convince them, or should they be permitted by the seller to share a portion of their commission. But the bottom line is, if neither one of those things happen, you're on the hook for the whole amount. Also, you want to establish a budget. And this means that you want to determine what you're comfortable paying on a monthly basis, right? And you want to try not to max it out. So for instance, if you're renting an apartment, let's say for $2,400, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, but I think I can afford $3,000, you have to consider the fact that you may possibly be buying a house that's 3 times the size of your $2,400 apartment. So this means your utility costs are going to go up. Now you're going to have to pay homeowners insurance instead of renters insurance. You're going to have to pay the property taxes, and all repair costs and anything that you want to do to that house will become your responsibility. So make sure that you don't max out on your budget. And another thing I like to tell people is never finance more than 3 times your pre-tax income. And what that means is, let's say your household income, 2 people are buying a house, between the 2 of you make $100,000 a year. You should never finance more, in my opinion, for a mortgage than 3 times that, or $300,000. And then really, when it comes to establishing your budget, the first thing you can do before all of that, even before you start looking at a house, you have to establish your must-haves. These are things that no matter what, that's not the niceties. These are the basic must-haves for your house. This will allow you to pick a house that costs less, but checks your boxes. Another important money-saving tip is only look at houses that have been on the market for 14 days or more. I hear it all the time. These home buyers go out and they get exuberant, and the agents tell you that there's multiple offers and you want to spend more money because you really love the house, so you stretch. But guess what? If you waited till that house had been on the market for 2 weeks or more, then sellers are more likely to negotiate a lesser price and better terms. So just to clarify, the first few days of any house hitting the market, that is the best chance for the home seller to make the most amount of money with doing the least amount of things. And then number 5, ask the listing agent and the seller critical questions. Now, this rarely happens, right? The buyer goes out with their agent, they look at the house, they like it, they put in an offer. Aren't there things that you want to know before you do that? Right? Make sure that even before you go look at the house, if there are disclosures, any documents that the seller's providing, don't wait until you're writing the offer. Ask your agent to give those to you that you can take while you're looking at the house. For an example, there may be an heirloom chandelier that's in the dining room that doesn't go with the house, and it would say that in the disclosure. So ask for seller disclosures. Ask about the HOA. Ask them things about utility costs, like how much does it cost to heat and cool this house, right? If the yard's big, who cuts the grass? Why are the sellers moving, right? Ask about the seller's motivations. Try and find out, guys, things like, have there been any other offers on the house? Your agent, if you have one, needs to communicate your questions. You should make a list for that seller ultimately, but asking the listing agent these questions so that you can get answers. It will also let them know that, hey, we have somebody smart on the other side. They're asking very good critical questions, and we better tell them what they need if we want to sell our house. And number 6, never waive your home inspection rights. I don't care what your agent says. If I have a buyer that wants to waive their inspection, and I know a lot about a house, but I'm not taking that weight on my shoulders by saying this is a good house. I want them to get a home inspection. If in the event that they say, you know what, I bought 3 houses before, the house looks good, I don't need a home inspection, whatever, I always make them sign something that says, for your protection, get a home inspection, because I want them to certify that I gave them this brochure that I keep electronically so that they can never come back and say, Todd, you didn't recommend a home inspection. I recommend home inspections. Now, yeah, you didn't get a house during this pandemic boom if you wanted one in most cases, right? Unless it was a complete dog in the neighborhood and no one else was buying it, which was rare because people were buying everything back then. But it's important that you find a good home inspector, not somebody that took the minimum course requirements, just got their home inspection license, but you want to do research on a home inspector. Don't just take your real estate agent's advice for a home inspector. They may have a good one, but keep in mind that real estate agents will be hard pressed to hire or recommend that deal killer, somebody that really tears a house apart during a home inspection. They're not going to keep having them back or giving those names out in a lot of cases, because then if you don't buy the house, they don't get paid. And well, there's that. And even go one step further. Let's say that you do hire a good home inspector. They're only going to go so far on things like the heating and air system, right? The electrical systems, the roofing system, or the quality of the roof, or the life expectancy of the roof that's there. And then things like wood burning fireplaces. So, what I teach in my course is there are certain reasons why you want to call the experts to look at certain parts of the house during the home inspection contingency period. And one of those would be to scope the sewer line, right? A lot of times houses that were built in the mid-'80s and before, they have old either cast iron or terracotta pipe that is used for the sewer line. A lot of times they crack, they go bad, tree roots get in there, and this can be a very costly repair. It's not that expensive to have an older home scoped, the sewer line scoped, so that would be something that I would recommend as well. And then tip number 7, negotiate for replacement, repairs, and cash. Now, what I mean by this, okay? So let's talk about the psyche of the seller, all right? You have a home inspection, you come up with this long laundry list of things that you want fixed, right? What happens is they start thinking, geez, if they're going to ask for things, what are we going to be willing to do? Did they find out about this that's broken, whatever? But when you ask them to make repairs, what are they thinking? They're thinking, well, we're under contract. They're thinking, I want to get the repairs done as cheap as possible so they could cut corners. So what I would do is sit down with your agent or the home inspector, or just think about it yourself and make a list of the things that you don't want to mess with, that you would want the seller to take care of, right? Maybe not things that they could go cheap on. And then what do you want them to replace, or do you want them to give you cash back at closing? Now you'd have to have that conversation with your lender if you have a mortgage. There are limits to the amount of cash back that a seller can give to a home buyer, but have that conversation with your lender. And by the way, 2 more kind of like sidebars to tip number 7. No seller wants their home to go back on the market. So you kind of do, if you're able to get the house under contract and you're able to have a home inspection, the sellers, the last thing they want is to go, oh gosh, the buyer's backed out. Because then they have to put it back to active that alerts the whole world that there was a problem. Anything that was safety items would have to be fixed or disclosed. So the seller would have to spend money on certain things anyway. But another sidebar to that is as part of the negotiations, when you're putting your house under contract, make sure that part of your deal is that they mark that house as pending, meaning no other people can look at that house, right? Some agents during a contingency period, like a 10-day home inspection contingency, during that period may try to mark that house as still active for sale, but under contract. So it might say active under contract. What that means is that they can still show that house, right? That the seller's like, well, during the inspection period, we'll still take people, through and take backup offers. I want you to make sure that you're telling your agent as part of the negotiations, write an addendum that says if they accept your offer, they are going to put that house in pending status, not active under contract. And the reason is because that is going to put even more pressure. So if during your inspection negotiations, that falls apart, it goes back to active, not from active under contract. It goes from pending to back to active. And no seller wants that and no agent wants that. Believe me when I tell you that. And tip number 8, review any HOA or condominium documents. Now, I recently came out with a great video on the history of HOAs. It also tells you all of the things that you should be looking out for, because a lot of people don't read these documents, right? They're voluminous in nature, but you need to review them. And a lot of people buying into an HOA, they don't know to ask their agent for these right away. And if the agent says, well, the resale, it's called a resale package. When the contract is signed, the seller orders what's known as a resale package. It comes with all the documents, but you can get your hands on these documents before then, right? You can actually get your hands on the documents before you write an offer. You could always ask the agent for the president's name and number of the HOA and get them from them if the seller doesn't have these documents, right? But you want to look over these HOA documents because they're very restrictive, some of these. And so a lot of people, they don't take the time to check it out, and then they realize later that they can't have the fence in the backyard and they want a dog, right? Or they can't park their company vehicle that they drive back and forth to work in the driveway because it has markings, and that is not allowed in that particular HOA. Don't just look at the documents of what you can and cannot do. Also look at the financials, right? Because you want to know recent financials within the last 30 days for the community. Have the dues increased in the last 12 months? Have there been any special assessments? Are they financially mismanaged? Because a lot of times when they have these special assessments where the homeowner has to write big checks on top of their HOA dues, a lot of it's because they're mismanaged financially. And also, are there any delinquencies? Neighbors not paying their dues. These are things that you'll want to know before you move in or even spend time writing a contract on a house in an HOA. And then number 9, don't be afraid to walk away. Look, I know it happens, right? You get excited, but if anything, reviewing the documents, going through the negotiations of the home inspection, chances are if you're buying a house today, you're still paying top dollar. So cut your losses, right? Walk away. Don't be afraid to walk away. Yes, you'll lose your home inspection money or any of those other trades, the inspections that you had them, fees that you paid for them. You'll lose those, but there's a saying that says, your first loss is your best loss. And then finally, tip number 10, shop homeowners insurance. I don't see people doing this either. They'll ask their lender that's connected with an insurance company, or maybe their agent will give them an insurance agent, and they present you with this policy, and that's what people go for, right? Know that you can do things like raise your deductible. So find out, what is the deductible on the policy that you're quoting me? And what happens if I raise it from $5,000 to $10,000? What you're really doing is insuring your house for major catastrophes, right? So if you can save money monthly, that's my recommendation. Now, something else you want to make sure that you have, from my experience, get water and sewer backup in your insurance policy, and also get coverage for appliances. Your water heater is an appliance. Your dishwasher is an appliance. Your refrigerator is an appliance. And nowadays, your refrigerator has a water line connected to it. Obviously, your dishwasher does, and so does your water heater. A lot of insurance policies exclude from appliances damages from leaky appliances or defaulting appliances. And this is where you get some of your biggest claims, right? All of a sudden, your dishwasher throws up all over your hardwood floors. You don't know, you don't pay attention to it. 3 hours later, your floors are buckled. Same thing with your finished basement. Your water heater can destroy everything downstairs, including baseboards and your drywall, if enough water stays on the floor long enough. So anyway, guys, I hope you got value from today's video. If you did, you can smash that thumbs up. Sometimes that's the only way I know. They don't comment, hey, Todd, thanks for the video. So hit that thumbs up. It'll let me know that you enjoyed today's video. Check out Todd's Simple Home Buying course if you're in the market to buy a house. This course is designed for anyone wanting to know how to buy a home. It's designed to take you through the entire home buying process from start to finish. You'll learn how to represent yourself should you want to avoid paying real estate commissions, the best ways to shop for a home, how to avoid costly mistakes, what to look for when touring a home, negotiation tactics, and so much more. In this home buying course, I hold nothing back. In fact, I would go to say that no one has uncovered the home buying process like I have. I've even made a way for you to gift this course to your family and friends. Visit saxrealty.education. The link is also pinned in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, consider doing so now. Hit that alert bell. You'll know every time we upload content just like this. See you next time. Sachs Realty, Maryland, broker number 607720, office number 443-318-4514, equal housing opportunity.